This is a Pyramid One International Network presentation.
Gentlemen, Star Family Agarthan neighbors, sentient beings from all dimensions in time and space. The psychedelic dolphin man, the man with a plan, a super soldier for the light, a legend in his own mind, a true healer with hands of light and a golden touch. The world's most sincere radio host, broadcasting from Earth inside the mothership to the galactic central sun. The voice of the resistance, His Divine Grace 333, Rob Potter.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and we're back with the Victor of Light Radio Show. I'm your host, Rob Potter. Anyway, I'm up here in Mount Shasta. My website, www.thepromiserevealed.com, is up and running, and of course I'm gearing up for the Mount Shasta Summer Conference at the end of July 27th through 29th. Always have to mention that here. Check it out. I moved things over to Eventbrite, so as we get closer to the event, I can send out emails and give you all updates of what's going on after you get your tickets. The speaker schedule is up. You check it out there on the links, and you're going to see lots of fun stuff. And hey, if remember I used to have the camping up there at the Shasta Camp. Well, this location, there's plenty of camping. All kinds of camping, $10 a night for the Forest Service. You can even go up camp nearby and just park in the woods somewhere, and it's actually free. So no excuses to not come up to Shasta this summer. Our early bird special price is available for $250. We do have speakers dinners. Friday night is full. We're now moving into Saturday night. If you want to come see the speakers there, we're going to have some very interesting vendors there. Myself, Jackie Fig. We have an artist, and Shari Lynn has got some interesting technologies, and we'll see what else is going to be showing up there. Wanted to let you all know also, there's been lots of wild speculation on the internet, and I think most of you know I've kind of turned back a little bit from the political skullduggery and the day-by-day prognostications of announcement of the crimes or the 30,000 indictments and all that stuff. It really is a distraction from the what we really should be focusing on, which is a spiritual vibrational shift. It's very great to know and understand what they're doing, but we're not going to find any truth out of this behemoth, this government, this system as it is. The pieces in there are too small. It's just going to have to collapse on its own through our lack of attention to its systems. I mean, the finances are a wild ride there. So I've been tasked to bring about another type of informational relationship, and that's about the simple truth of the relationship between Earth and our space family neighbors who wish to involve themselves with us. And we have to be able to receive the message and mature enough to listen to what's being offered, and so that we can integrate this interplanetary cultural exchange that is most likely going to begin with the Venusians and the Pleiadians and possibly some others and move onwards. But in the meantime, we need to prepare ourselves. And I just got back from another trip to Bolivia. I was there in August, and I just came back from one April and May. So had a couple of journeys down there with Louis Martins, and I've got some information on the journey to the New Shambhala there on my blog site. I've changed the look on my website a bit, so check it out. my YouTube channel is really good, and I think I need to put a link up there. I really think people should check out my YouTube channel and favorites. I have lots of interviews there and lots of stuff you can check out. So today and for the next coming weeks, I'm going to be doing some interviews, mostly with the guests of my show. We're going to do Genesee Roy, an amazing woman, coming up next week. I've also got Len Horowitz next week. And today I have Frank Chili, who hails from New Jersey back there, one of my oldest friends and mentors in the UFO movement. When I was having my experiences with Fred Bell in 78, I think it was 79, Michael Allegian came around, and through 80 and 82 or something like that, we were basically, Fred started talking about the extraterrestrial stuff, and I was having these contacts, but they were out of body. I wasn't really sure what was happening there. So Michael Allegian and Frank Chili were really instrumental in kind of helping me with ET 101. You know, the realization that our space brothers are there and so forth and so on. And eventually, I think they introduced me to Gabriel Green, who was a mentor of mine and Raymond Keller, and has a lot of interesting information. So I just remember, folks, Frank Chili was always being so very positive and always talking about the brothers, and isn't it amazing? Isn't it fantastic? And I saw, like he saw, that they were the key to the Earth's destiny. But, you know, we always have to have discernment and kind of, figure out what's going on. The Gray situation was starting up, and things didn't really get clear on that until the mid 80s. So there's lots of waves of information that UFO movement's gone through, and Frank and I have come back to settle on the simple truth of our benevolent space family contacts. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome you, Frank Chili. Don't spill all the beans that you're gonna release at the conference, but let's talk a little bit and share about some of your wonderful life experiences with the brothers.
Thank you, Rob. It's always a joy to share with you and your audience, and we're going to have one heck of an event at Mount Shasta. It's going to be spectacular on so many different levels. It's so good to be able to be back there and to be able to speak on the mountain and to be there with George and Raymond and some of the other guests that you're going to have there. It's going to be just a spectacular event, and I could feel the energy building for something really, really significant. And there's going to be a lot of interpersonal activity that I feel with people being brought there from all diverse areas and regions. A lot of folks are coming to this for the first time and visiting Mount Shasta for the first time. I'm hearing from people who said they're being drawn to go to this conference. I think it was brilliant on your end to title it From Venus with Love, because, boy, that is truly what this event is about. It's the awakening is a love fest, an event of true finding of the heart and realizing that our cosmic family is here directed by the heart and directed by the love energy that they feel for us. And I'm excited to participate in this and to be able to gather with you there, and it's going to be a wonderful time. I really feel that it's going to be eventful, and everyone who can attend, I feel if you feel an inner prompting to be there, be there. There's not going to be any loss of anything other than ignorance. I think you and I had discussed this once before, Rob, that people who look at the apocalypse or doomsday, that is merely just a reflection of letting go of the what we don't know, what our ignorance is, what we had feared in knowing our true selves. And our benevolent brothers and sisters of light, they bring that recognition to us. And it was apparent to me from the first time I saw some of the images of Celia Winkler that she was painting out in the high desert area, and she was sending to Sam and White Dove at Grass Valley, the Manca retreat.
Yeah.
When I went up there to visit with Simon and another friend of ours, her name was Triana, I went into the room where the gallery of those oil paintings were, and I wept because it was like looking at family portraits. I recognized these individuals. I said, holy God, they're just magnificent beings that we know. They're here with us. Yeah,
you really bring down the reality that they're just other beings here. And, in the early days, I was like, oh, I take the Kool-Aid, what's the space thing like this and all that. And it really just comes down to when you get through it, you just go, wow, this is really, it's really going to change the world if we can wake up and get beyond, a lot of this negativity. Now, I've thought about the quarantine. Of course, I have my opinion on it. But why don't you share your feelings on why they don't openly contact the general populace? We know they've contacted the governments run by the super federation or the super corporations and all that kind of stuff. And we know they've contacted some individuals. But what is the reasoning for not interposing a little bit more?
I feel that there's a quickening and awakening that's occurring, and I may have shared this with you before, Rob, but I'm meeting women from all around the country who are telling me that they are spending 60 to 80% of their consciousness in this, the true reality of how we're going to be interacting with our space friends. And they say that they're only spending 20 to 40% of their time here, basically going through the paces of what this third dimension has been. And they said they can't share with their husbands or with their boyfriends, but they said, Frank, what we're seeing is unbelievable. We're interacting with our cosmic family. We're at that point where there's that love and peace energy and the communication at a telepathic level where nothing is hidden anymore. Everybody is open, and they can be...
Can you explain? I want to go back as you talk about these women, but let's give the audience who's not quite up on the conversation a little more background. So what he's been telling me, folks, is there have been some women who've been having physical interactions with extraterrestrials. He can tell you generally who they are, what their names are, but they're like housewives. UFOs are landing, and they're having interactions that they can't even relate to their family. Is that right?
Yes. And every time I speak, like 2 weeks ago, I was speaking at the Middleton Library in North Jersey. And after the lecture, women came up to me and they told me of their own personal experiences with the visitors. This one woman who lives in Lakewood, New Jersey, she said, Frank, I'm in touch with the beings within Agartha. She said, they opened up a portal in my backyard, and she said, I go there and I communicate with them, and she showed me a photograph taken of this portal. And Rob, I have to send this to you. I have to share this with you. It shows two fairy beings, one of a young girl that's maybe about 4 or 5 inches high, and another one is, and she's like a lavender color, and the other one is an older maybe an 18 or 19-year-old girl whose image is also there in a portal. And she said, Frank, I go there. And she says, I'm receiving messages from the subterranean beings that love us and are so open to interact with us and are anxious for this.
Right.
She said, I want you to come here. And she said, I want you to see this portal and tell me what you receive. And she said, she's been picking up all this angelic energy also coming through the portal from Archangel Michael, Archangel Gabriel, Raphael, and also from Oriel. And she said, Frank, I see these lights that are moving around. And she said, I feel so happy and elated from it. She said, there's nothing that's not positive about this. And she said, I want to share this with more people. And she said, I can't wait for us to be able to describe these things and have folks come and openly embrace us with this information. And her name was Margot. And I said, Margot, I think that day is coming very, very quickly. 2 other women came up to me and shared information with them. One of them told me that they had lost a relationship over this because their husbands were not open to it. And they could not set aside what they were being prompted to be involved in and to be part of. And they said, this is the true essence of our being. And I said, yes. And I said, there's challenges to this and there's tests. And each of us are constantly being tested to see whether or not we're up to the mettle of what our responsibility is in this awakening.
Yeah, that's a very good point. So one of the things that is taking place is the multidimensional nature. There's so many stories up here of Mount Shasta, of little people. There's the Shasta circles, and some of these beings are actually descendants of Lemurians and stuff, because Mount Shasta was one of the areas at the edge of the continent of Mu that sunk. And so there's stories of giants and extraterrestrials and many different aspects of the multi-dimensional nature of our reality. And that definitely is one of the things we're going to be opening up and understanding as these higher dimensional energies, or some people call the throne energies of the archangelic realm. And this isn't about worshiping other beings. There's only one being to be worshipped. That's the Creator, and that that's there's an article I'm coming out with in regards to Ray, and that talks about the Plamora and the multidimensional nature of how humans mistakenly took some of these extraterrestrials as gods, or to humans, I guess they'd be considered demigods. But we're moving back into this shift and awakening. Tell us.
We're becoming more aware of our older brothers and sisters who are consciously nudging us into wakefulness. I want to share something with you. Simon and I used to visit Sister Thedra when she was at Shasta before she moved to Sedona, and she would tell us that she would take walks in the afternoon on the opposite end of the mountain, opposite from Panther Meadow, and we had brought to her a gift that was given to her by a friend who was also an artist of the Master Jesus. And she opened it up and she saw it and she wept and she said, "Simon and Frank, this is exactly how the Master Jesus looks to me when he appears." So she said, when I was at the other end of Shasta, the opposite end of Panther Meadow, she said there's an area that she goes to, and she said there's a little fairy ring. She said it's about 6 by a friend who was also an artist of the Master Jesus. And she opened it up and she saw it and she wept and she said, "Simon and Frank, this is exactly how the Master Jesus looks to me when he appears." So she said, when I was at the other end of Shasta, the opposite end of Panther Meadow, she said there's an area that she goes to, and she said there's a little fairy ring. She said it's about 6 feet in diameter, and she said she would go there, and in the afternoons they put on a little event for her. She said they have a bonfire, and she said they dance around the bonfire, and she said there's 3 and 4 inch fairies, male and female. There's unicorns, tiny miniature unicorns, and she said they put on a little show for her. And she said after she had seen this event, before Simon and I got there, they brought her a gift of Shasta sage that they had put together in a bundle, and they tied it with a ribbon. It was so beautiful, this ribbon. So she said, "I had no idea you and Simon were going to bring me this gift today." She said, "I want to give you the gift of this Shasta sage to give to the woman," her name is Roberta Herzog, "who painted this portrait of the singing Christ, which caused Thedra to weep. I mean, we never saw her emote like that before." So she said, "I do not want to send this through the mail. I want you and Simon to hand carry this back to Roberta, who lived in Pennsylvania," which we did. And Roberta was moved to tears when she saw it as well. And she said, "Frank, this is a special sage." She said, I never want to open this bundle. She said, "I never want to open this ribbon. It is just so beautiful." These things occur. I mean, Shasta is a magical place. People who come there, I say have no expectation but have abundant anticipation.
Yeah, I'll have to tell you that there's lots of these stories, as I said, about Mount Shasta here and the fairies, and there were lots of ancient references from the early 1800s, and lots of talk about where the name Shasta came from, and the Indians called it Gautama, and the whole relationship from Lemuria of 70,000 years ago, that there was a outpost here, and then they knew for a long time that they would have some problems. The writing was on the wall. And over the last 2,000 years from 12 to 10,000 years ago, Lemuria in successive sinkings, and the final amount of Lemuria went down right before Poseidon, the last island of Atlantis. And so a lot of these groups had gone underground. So this interesting thing that correlates here with Sister Thedra is that Sister Thedra knew George Hunt Williamson, and they both had come to South America, to the Abbey of the Seven Rays, which is where Louis Martins has been, near Machu Picchu. It's a 3-day hike down the road, and there's been some stuff in the village that was nearby isn't even there. So this valley is very remote, and the energies there are pretty special. Louis has gone there to that abbey that George Hunt Williamson went, and wrote the book Secret of the Andes there. So Sister Thedra was extremely in touch with the masters and the extraterrestrials, and was giving a tremendous amount of information out. So we're hoping, I actually have a bunch of stuff that Raymond has information, but I'm resurrecting, and I'll be releasing. And if you watch on my website there, in my blog post, and I recommend people go and look at my blog. We have some amazing stuff in there.
Rob, she was directed to go there from Chicago. She was told to go there and to form the Association of Sananda and Sanat Kumara, and that's what she formed, the ASSK, the Association of Sananda and Sanat Kumara, and she published books and a newsletter there. And she would get photographs from all over the world that she would show in her office of people who would come to visit her. And one showed a depiction that a woman had taken in California, somewhere I think it was in San Luis Obispo, where her children were on a swing set in the backyard, and the mother was guided to get a camera, and she took a photograph, and in the image there was a beautiful rendition of a manifestation of Mother Mary overlighting the two children as they were playing on the swings. It was an incredible photograph, I'm telling you, just spectacular stuff that Thedra had. And she showed us a photo that was taken when her and George Hunt Williamson were in the Monastery of the Seven Rays, when they were guided to follow a trail to a tomb. And when they went to the entrance of a tomb, the Master Jesus appeared to both of them at about the age of 18, and she took a photograph of it. It's a remarkable, remarkable photograph. We had seen the original of it. If you've never seen it, I'll send a copy of it to you.
Okay, I don't think I've seen it. I think you bring that to Shasta. We have a lot of amazing things that Raymond's going to be revealing. So these journeys to these inner retreats is part of the Agartha network that's opening up. I'm going to be announcing some other things at the conference as well that the masters and guides have asked me to do. So I'm going to be sharing some stuff in regards to the Agartha network and what the group we call the Great White Brotherhood. And once again, folks, these are just, let's say, the slightly more spiritually developed individuals who are going to be sharing with us and healing us through basically just simple truth and interaction, how we can come to harmony and peace in our personal lives and for the planet as well.
Robert, it's been said that Shasta has never been, that part of Northern California has never been underwater. It's always been above water. And I had been told, and you may be aware of this as well, that if you're a granted entrance into the mountain, you're brought into a conical chamber, and you're in that chamber by yourself, and you hear the most beautiful music you could ever imagine. And it's revealed to you later that this conical chamber is set up to amplify the musical chords of our soul. So you're hearing your own soul sounds within that chamber. And everyone's different. Everyone is unique.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's part of some of the healing technology the Pleiadians were sharing with Fred Bell, how to read the body's aura and give it feedback to bring its own soul signature higher. And when the spaceships fly, they fly on the auric signature of the captain. So the sound that you're hearing from the ship is kind of the auric signature of the captain. And in the Pleiades, they have their spaceports shaped acoustically correct so that the pilots can show off their own kind of sound when they land.
Yes, yes. And, Shasta is known for having lenticular clouds. Well, Sister Thedra showed a photograph that she had taken of 5 lenticular clouds that were parked one on top of each other that were over Shasta for a 4-day period. Now, they can't be clouds because clouds do not stay stationary for a 4-day period. So there must have been some immense conference going on at the mountain for that to have been depicted and for her to capture that photograph. It's an incredible photograph. I'll share it with the audiences there.
Yeah, we have the Mount Shasta. We have those like all the time, 1, 2 different. The other day we had a cigar-shaped ship over the Eddies and 2 ships. So there's definitely actions going on. You mentioned they've been underwater. There's also an area around the mountain that was very famous from ancient Indian lore that a fire can reaches a certain point on the mountain and then it just goes out. And I think from what I was told, it's kind of like the nature spirits protecting the playground on the surface where these kind of like other dimensionals come out. I mean, sometimes it seems like, pretty fantastic to a lot of people, but we really have to open up our minds. I mean, do we, need to go out fairy hunting? No, I think when we come to understand and respect, the gnomes and the fairies, that they exist, that when humanity can interact them without, hurting them or destroying them. But right now we're destroying the natural environment through not us individually, although collectively we have a system here that could be a lot more organic.
No, I'm here.
Yeah, so I thought,
Rob,
go ahead.
I wanted to share, too, that two women that came up to me after one of the events where I was speaking told me that they had been out to Shasta, and there's a little coffee shop not too far from the mountain, and they had gone in at the end of the day to have a bite to eat. I think the coffee shop closes at 8 o'clock, and just the two of them were in the shop, and they said a fella came in, must have been in his maybe 25 to 28 years of age, blonde hair, blue eyes. He was wearing he was wearing oh my gosh,
clothes.
They said he almost looked like a lumberjack, but he was not. He didn't have big hands like that, and he was dressed very casual. And he came in and he said, "Can I sit down with you?" And the women said, "Sure, of course." And they offered him if he wanted to have anything to eat or drink, and he said no. He said, "I just want to be with you and ask you your impressions of Shasta and about the area and what do you believe about the mountain." And he stayed with them during the course of their dinner and kept asking them questions about if they ever had any spiritual experiences, what did they think of the possibility of life on other planets, and things like that. So they said, this guy was fascinating. He had the most stunning eyes. And she said, or both of them said, his energy was just so buoyant and so positive. And then the owner of the cafe said, well, we're going to have to close up now. You want to finalize your bill? And they were the only ones that were they had brought their car up, and so they were the only ones in the parking lot. So they said to the fella, we're going to pay the bill. We'll meet you outside. And he said, okay. So they paid the bill. They went outside. He was not there. He completely disappeared. There was no car or anything like that. They thought that he was a visitor who just came in to gauge their reactions of what they thought of the area.
Yeah, that's very true. Probably very possible. I'm sure, we certainly wouldn't recognize many of them. I think it would become an oddity in a circus show on one level. At the same time, I think people need to prepare for the reality of a very real physical experiences, and so that they can get over oh my God, they're so lofty and so angelic, and they obviously have a very balanced society and lifestyle and technology, but we can't get into awe or worship. We need to go into an open relationship where we can learn and seek to know some of possibly the way they think and the way their culture and civilization views the world.
Yes. And I'd like to share with you and your audience, Rob, that a couple that I knew here from the East Coast, Patty and Dennis, they were friends of this Roberta Herzog, this lifelong friend of mine, and they got an inner prompting to go to Shasta. So they got married here on the East Coast. They lived in Pennsylvania, and they went out to Shasta, and they were living there probably for about 6 months, and relationships started to sour. So Dennis was getting the feeling that the marriage would come to an end, and he was so distraught over it. He did not want to lose Patty. He did not want the marriage to end. So this one night, it was in August, he finished dinner, and he told Patty, he said, I'm drawn to go to Panther Meadow. He said, I want to do some thinking and clear my head and try to find a balance in our marriage and our relationship again. So we went up to Panther Meadow, and it was about 9:15 in the evening, and it was just twilight. And he said that he was standing by a tree and just thinking about how much he cared about Patty, how much he loved her, how much he wanted to spend the rest of his life with her. And he said, on the corner of the tree, around the opposite end of the tree, a figure came to him, walked up to him, and he said, you and Patty will not separate. You will be together. Go home and tell her that. And he said, the person who came to him with this message looked exactly like the image of Saint Germain in the photograph of Blavatsky with the three masters, where they're standing behind the chair, Kuthumi, El Morya, and Saint Germain. Dennis said, Frank, he looked exactly like the image in that photograph. So he went home to Patty. Patty said, as soon as he walked in the door, she said, Dennis, I felt something happened. You had an experience. And he said, yes. He said, Saint Germain came to me and said that our marriage will not fall apart, that we will persevere through this, and that we will remain together. And they've been together ever since. This occurred something like 15 years ago. So things like that do occur. Spiritual interactions like that can occur. And I'm telling you, I know these two people personally, and they would never make up a story like that.
Yeah, I believe it. There's a lot of things happening. There's a lot of mystical stuff out there. One of the things I really love about Frank Raymond, who you introduced me to. By the way, folks, so you know, Frank Chile is a understated networker here. He's a person who bought William Tompkins out into the public, and Bob Woodward introduced him to me, to Corey Goode, Jeff Rentz, and he has a lot of connections of individuals all around the world, some private, and some
We're going to open more of
public.
these to your radio show. We're going to open more of these individuals to your radio show, Rob, and they're anxious to come on board. They really are.
I'm looking forward to it. We're going to have Clifford Stone and Joan Bird at
yes.
some point up here, and
Yes.
we're hoping
Clifford
to.
shared with me,
Oh.
you know, I if I could share this with you and your audience,
Yeah.
I had given him a copy of the Rockwell Integrated Space Chart that Tompkins had worked on when he was originally at McDonnell Douglas. And then when he went to Rockwell, it expanded, and it was a chart that was set out to not only explore the moon, but to go out into our solar system and out into visiting the stars. And this chart was from 1970 all the way up to, I believe, 2050. Well, Colonel Don Ware sent me a copy of it, and he told me, he said, Frank, I want you to share this with Bill Tompkins, Bob Wood, and Michael Salla. And he said, let them see that this is now being released. So I sent it to Bob Wood and Bill Tompkins, and when Bill saw it, he said, Frank, he said, we must be very close to the cusp. He said, if they're releasing this, he said, this was very confidential information. And when Colonel Ware sent this to me, I said, Colonel Ware, I had thought that, you know, we were maybe 50, 75, 100 years ahead in technology than what the public is aware of. He said, Frank, it's 1,000 years. Bill Tompkins said, it's 1,000 years. Bob Wood, when he saw this, he said, Frank, everything on this chart was accomplished decades ago.
What is that stuff? Where did the chart come from?
It was compiled by Bill originally to lay out a pro forma. It's like a flow chart of how to get things accomplished on a galactic scale. And when he passed away, well, he shared the original with Corey Goode and Michael Salla and Bob Wood at his home in California. And it's 6 feet wide, 6 feet long, and 3 feet wide. I'm telling you, tens of thousands of man-hours went into this. And Corey Goode, when he saw it, he jumped back. He said, I never thought I'd ever see anything like this. He said, what Bill worked on was the door opener for what he accomplished when he was working upstairs with the visitors. But he said it was all as a result of what Bill had outlined. Well, I shared that information with Clifford, and Clifford said, Frank, it's not 1,000 years difference between what the insiders know and the public doesn't know. He said it's like 1,400 years. And Clifford's being given information from the aerospace industry, from the military, from Intel, and from individuals that he knows privately, and are funneling this information to him. And he said, Frank, I want this information to come out. People have to know the truth about things. And Rob, it's happening. It's happening.
Yeah, it's really good. So do you think these guys are working with wink, wink from some people in Intel intelligence, but the head guys don't want this released for the most part?
There are some insiders, some scientific people, and one of them is a physicist that I know, and he said he's very close to what the insiders are working on. And he said the Holloman Air Force Base incident where a 100-foot craft landed and a being came out and interacted with President Eisenhower, I think it was in 1954. He said that was all filmed, and he said that was supposed to be released as part of a special that was going to be narrated by Rod Serling, and the government pulled back at the last minute and only allowed 8 frames to be released. And in the 8 frames, you could see this glowing white disc that's 100 feet in diameter. Well, one of the physicists that's close to the program was told that that is real footage, that they've seen the exact footage of the craft landing at Holloman. It's 100 feet in diameter, a being that comes out that looks exactly like us, Rob, and interacts with Eisenhower and several other visitors that were brought together for this event. They're saying that may be the next bit of film clips that are going to be released to the public. And if that is released, that should quiet a lot of people as to what's going on. It should be a turning point.
Yeah, I really hope so, because this can, we need to get a floodgate. And then, unfortunately, with the media in this particular position, everybody's going to have this crazy, they'll allow chaos to be speculated. It needs to be revealed literally. I think it's going to have to come through the brothers, through the general populace. It's not going to come through the media as it is now, or any official government channel that will only skew it. So
I saw a special on the History Channel, Rob, that talked about how the Vatican was compiling data from the Vatican Library, where they're going back and they're putting together information from all their prophets, from architects like Copernicus, mathematicians, philosophers like Plato, Copernicus, Plato, Michelangelo, Da Vinci, where every one of these individuals that got the insight that they worked with in their life was basically at the behest of interaction with visitors. And he said that the Vatican's preparing all this information and they're going to release it to the public. That would go far to convincing a lot of people that this is a reality, Rob.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, the Vatican is like the government. They want to control it. Unfortunately, the truth of churches and religions and the real messages of the masters is currently far apart. But
I agree. I asked this friend of mine. I said, who is prompting things behind the scenes? Who's the one that's initiating this to move it forward? He was very quiet, and you know what he said to me? He said he was told it's the visitors. The visitors want all this to come out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
They're the ones pushing this agenda. It's time. It's graduation time.
Well, one of the things I was learning about the Venusian understanding of ascension is that when a soul is created, a brand new soul, if it comes to the solar system, it will. Hello? Oh, we're getting a little scratchy there. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
Okay, good. So he said that life comes in and it goes to like the outer planets of Neptune, and it learns how to create a body of sort of very rudimentary body, and then it goes through millions of years of evolution or whatever, and then it finally has its first physical incarnation on Mars, and it kind of just learns the body and engineering and health and all that kind of stuff. And then the next step is it comes to Earth, where it goes out to experience things in the world. They call it the path of pursuit. And then the path of return is going back inwards and returning to the higher realm. So the humanity's kind of in this phase between the path of pursuit and the path of return. And then after incarnating on Earth, you'll go to Venus, where you'll begin to develop what's called the solar body. And so on, you go to Mercury, and then to one called Vulcan. And then eventually, I guess, the graduate frequency is there's beings living on the sun.
Yes.
So Judy Beebe talked about that. So
yes,
it's kind of the path of the soul. We have long time of experiencing things, and some of us aren't even coming from this solar system. We might be coming from elsewhere, huh?
We're all visitors.
Yeah.
We're all visitors. We all volunteered to be here. And, people shouldn't be upset about the time that we're living through. This is a graduation point, and, we wanted to be part of this. We're witnesses to this, and we're also, what do I want to say? We're midwives to helping this process come about, because we're all nudging consciousness. Every day, you're doing it in your way. I'm doing it in my way. Everybody is helping to nudge consciousness and wakefulness. And we're all in this together, and it's beautiful. The support network is incredible.
Yeah, it's it's kind of something that's kind of evolving. It's like a mandala of people with different experiences, and everyone has their own unique view. And sometimes we get caught up in the materialism of our thoughts and ideas, and wanting to impose our ideas of how we perceive the world, or what we think it should be, or what we're told it is. And we need to learn how to kind of like enter the silence and just, let it be as it is.
Yes. Judy had given me some very good advice some time ago. She said, Frank, be aware of what's happening in the world, but don't let it break your focus from moving forward. And that's really sage advice.
Yeah, I'm definitely not paying too much attention. I keep my pulse on what people are saying and thinking, but if you get out there, there's so much ignorance and confusion. It detracts from the message of understanding the societal challenges that we're facing, as well as our own perceptions and belief systems. And
I think it's all purposeful. It's to create the distraction, and we don't need to be distracted. We've been distracted long enough.
Yeah, we can look. We should start questioning things and looking for alternative solutions. But all that work is kind of within yourself. And to be as an example, one of the things I kind of knew it, but the extraterrestrials, they can come here in a spaceship cloaked. They can drop down here invisible and stand right next to us in a room while things are going on. And they can be not trying to mind control us, but telepathically putting suggestions or ideas in our heads, where, to kind of correct our errant thinking, because our cultural values and everything have strayed so far from the God's natural laws that we really don't have a cultural compass or a rudder. Not that it has to be a dogma or something, but to be trained and understand who we are as souls and beings, and the journey and the mission in life. And so this is how the brothers and sisters share their love with us, is by taking the time and compassionately helping us. It's not about secretly manipulating us or anything like that.
There's nothing that you and I ever talk about or share that couldn't be open to everyone. And the ability to be open and receptive is up to the individual. We could offer them this cup, Rob, but all we could do is offer it to them. And God knows it's been pushed aside by so many people for so long. But now it's a universal cup, and everybody can drink and partake of it equally and share in the joy of what's going to be revealed.
Yeah, and hopefully it could be revealed. I mean, it's a step-by-step. That's the promise, is that the revelation of truth and the open contact, or what we call the return of the open understanding that we're not alone. Spaceships can come and go. We don't have any roads and cars and traffic and financial system. There's no insurance companies and genetically altered foods. As we learn and grow, we have to create alternatives, and it's going to be a process. But I think if humanity embraces the positive aspects, and as open interplanetary cultural exchange can take place without fear, that's been promoted and programmed so much. It's going to take some work of adjustment for us on Earth, and not to be just open and blind to every bit of information either.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. These women that I mentioned to you, there's been dozens of them who've come forward, and they've been quickened. They've been their vibration and awareness has been accelerated. And one thing that they share with me that every one of us said, they said, Frank, this awakening occurs within the twinkling of an eye. You're at this level of awareness, and then the next second you're at the reality of what we're truly about. And it's perfection. It's perfection's personified. And everything we heard about it, we will see that reality. And none of these women know each other, and they're sharing this with me, and I'm sharing it with you and your audience.
Yeah, well, I've experienced those moments in various moments of lucidity in various times in my life, and sometimes, you think you know it all, and then you got to realize you don't know much of anything. That's a quote from Semyasi. She goes, you think you know something, you realize you don't know much of anything at all. So
it's very humbling. It's very humbling.
Yeah. Humble is a good way to be when looking, and I think compassionate is important too, because when we look at the world, we have a tendency to judge others and their actions. Like, I'm really disappointed in the people who think in the police force and some of the military and the things they do, and I know that a lot of their motivations are based on bravery and sincerity and chivalry, but there's a lot of manipulation going on in the world and a lot of suffering taking place, and we all need to work together to support our fellow man. I mean, some people are so callous when they look at someone on the street who maybe has a nervous disorder and is without a home and clothes. Yeah. I mean, we need a lot more compassion and ways to reach out, and we're going to have to find that within our own fellow man and in the mirror.
Truly, truly. Rob, some friends of mine who don't know me as you know me, and as perhaps your audience knows me from our sharing, they say, Frank, aren't you concerned? Don't you want to start owning guns and starting to protect yourself? And I say to them, what happens when we reach the point where the frequencies change and you go to pull the trigger, nothing happens? And Rob, the look in their eyes when I say that to them, it's like they can't conceive of that happening. But there could be that kind of shift.
Mm-hmm.
So you could have all the guns in the world and they're meaningless because that frequency of destruction is gone.
Yeah, it's just something that I guess individuals, some people wake up right away. Some people have things up and down. I mean, my life goes up and down. I've been very, very busy lately. I've moved here, finally in Shasta. My personal life's been kind of in chaos, and finally got settled in and trying to get some longer-awaited changes happening and get this conference out there to people and sharing the information. Let's talk about what you do. You know Genesee Roy?
No, I don't. I don't know Genesee.
Oh, you're going to meet her. She's really great, intuitive psychic. I think she's the next wave of a new age priestess. She's very together, doesn't speak with a hesitation. She's going to be great. And George Filer, why don't you share some of the latest information
Oh, my
from
God.
George?
George is an incredible, I am telling you, anybody who's ever met him and known him, he's really a brother of light. He's really connected with our friends upstairs. And he's been through a lot of trials and tribulations within his family with the passing of his two daughters. He lost two daughters within 30 days of each other, and yet they have come forwarded to grant him and his wife Janet solace. People who are clairvoyant have been able to pick up on that, but George still has incredible connections within certain areas where information is provided to him. And he was given photographs, undoctored photographs of Mars that showed lakes and foliage and trees and forests on Mars that were not airbrushed out. And he publishes them in his newsletter. It's an incredible newsletter. It's called Filer's Files that comes out on a weekly basis. It's free of charge. All you'd have to do is just submit your email address, and he'd be happy to send it out to you. And you'll see photographs and information there that you won't find many other places. And George's background was he was a military intelligence officer who would brief generals and colonels on a daily basis. He had his own experiences with the craft at the age of 5 when he was growing up in Indiana, and then he saw craft the size of 1 million, not 1 million, but 1 mile in diameter when he was in service over England. And Prince Philip had him and his crew come in and shared time with them at Buckingham Palace. He wanted to hear stories about what the men had seen and what the experience was. And he said it was really an eventful night, that Prince Philip was really into hearing about this information and about the craft. And throughout his life, he's come into contact with individuals who shared information with him that he networks, and he's spoken to so many people in the service who've had their own experiences, and he's got reel-to-reel tapes of interviews with individuals, and he does it all without a staff. He's a one-man event, and God bless him. He just does this because of the love of the work, and he knows the promise that you talk about is the promise of the rejoining of the cosmic family, all of us being part of that family.
Yeah, he's great. He's got you really should. It's a National MUFON network, and he is the editor of the entire thing. They have 300 or 3 million members or hits a month or something. But
yes, it's incredible.
He's got a tremendous amount of information with lots of pictures and sightings and stories, a lot related from his friends and knowledge. So he is a real historical archivist, much like Raymond Keller.
Yes, he is. That's true. And they bonded incredibly. When Ray came in and he spoke at our group, I brought him down to visit with George, and they bonded so very, very well. I mean, they're both encyclopedias of information.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, they're both, if they got out all their stuff there'd be, probably 20 movies in the making.
And Rob, what's amazing is there's no ego. They share without judgment and unconditionally, and it's beautiful. It's just wonderful to watch it occur. That's what it should be all about.
Yeah, there's a lot of commercialism.
I know, a lot of backbiting out there. A lot of backbiting.
Yeah, people gotta kind of just keep their own thing, keep your own space, focus on the love and the communication, sense if it's real. You have to be open-minded because we all can't have these experiences. But if you're sincere and you want to know the truth and you just keep searching, you get noticed, and then things will happen, and you can start to have your own experiences as you develop. And, it's so when you finally see a craft and you know it's a real craft, it's not, oh my God, I saw a craft. It's now you can start to realize and think, who's in there? What is their message? Yeah. Why are they here? Why can't they show themselves? What are they doing? You go through all of those ET 101 experiences, and hopefully you can come to a positive spiritual information that's going to...
And Rob, we're always being overlighted. We're always being... monitored as to how open and receptive we are for this information. And the more that we are, the more it's given to us. Look how these people like Dr. Raymond Keller and George Filer, they're giving this information freely, and they share it freely, and they share it without any holdback. It's like, here it is. It's here for you,
And so do you, Frank.
Well, yes.
It's the way it should be.
In our own ways, we do that. And it's we're all part of this support network where we're all interacting with one another, and we're sharing our insights and our experiences and what we've been told. I understand Joan Bird's going to be at your event. She's coming to Mount Shasta.
Oh, good.
Yes, she's going to be there, and I don't know whether or not. But there's several others that are working on trying to get out there. I'll just be quiet until we learn a little bit more about it. But Joan told me she will be there.
I'm looking forward to seeing her, and we'll have...
Her stories are incredible. I mean, about what's happening in Montana and the benevolent beings that are coming forward, of people who've been motivated by her book to come forward and tell their own stories. And there's nothing wrong in what they're experiencing. It's just so life-affirming and so positive to hear that these people are having experiences the individuals don't know one another, but they're having interactions with the cosmic visitors that are just beautiful and just from the heart.
Yeah, I think this is going to, and a lot of this, because people, like me or someone who people feel have a vested interest to promote, a UFO religion or whatever their, judgment or feeling is on whatever.
They don't want that. They don't want that. The visitors don't want any of that.
No, but people, what I'm saying is when you have a woman, a housewife who's reluctant to come forward, who's been having experiences, who's never been into like this metaphysical field or anything.
Yes.
And they can relate it, and from a very down to earth, very much like Genesee Roy. She's a normal woman. Runs a spa. Next thing you know, she's 94 days, 12 planets, and one soul.
Right. She matriculated.
Yeah, she had a whole bunch of experiences and wrote them down. So it gives it more credibility than someone who's like, continually telling a story, along the same line when someone comes out of left field supporting it from their own personal experience. I think it's going to reach a whole nother level of audience, like housewives and stuff like that can relate to what they're happening.
You don't have to be somebody of letters or somebody who's had a profound effect upon the world to have these experiences, because we're all of the same. We're all the same. There's nothing about us that makes us more unique than one another. It's just perhaps we're more receptive and ready to be more aware, and it comes from within.
Yeah, that's for sure. Everything's kind of like filtered through our own perception. So I think if we can just really look for that universal connection that we have with others, we're going to get along a lot better. We've got a couple minutes here, about 5 minutes left. Is there any, you want to slip in a good story for us, or?
Well, I can say this to you that Bob Wood told me that the next installment in the books about the experience of Bill Tompkins is going to be available in 2 months. And he told me that there's so much research material that Bill had left in both his storage facility, and he compiled notes and documents for further release. We're going to be astounded by what's going to still be revealed. He was at the pivotal point of so many historic things that people are not aware of, but they're going to be made aware of it. And just incredible things. And it's a revelation for all of us. I mean, he did his work very, very quietly, but it had an immense impact, and the impact is still being felt.
Yeah, well, he was, so close with the ET groups, working with him and kind of guiding him, and allowing him to, develop a real genuine space program that could be developed, that humanity could, reach the stars without, he wanted to build the higher technology craft, but that was kind of taken over by the dark side. And so he never was involved in that, but he definitely was very
he did some design work up until the end before he passed. And I have some photographs of things that he had worked on. They're incredible. I'll share with the audience out of Shasta. But he had the gift up until he passed to be able to tune in, like he would do drawings and designs based upon the operatives that were coming back from Germany during the Second World War as to the technology and what they were seeing and experiencing them. I would tell him about events that I was involved in, and I told him about one event at San Jacinto. And Rob, he tuned into it like he was walking along with me and saw what it was that I experienced. And he could relate to it and see it in perfect detail. He had that ability to be able to tune in.
What did you see? Tell us, what did you see in San Jacinto?
Well, I'll reveal it at the Mount Shasta.
I love it.
Good stuff.
We got time. One more little tidbit.
Yes, I'd like to say that one other story that he used to tell us is that they had found the first portal in Northern Virginia, and after that, the Navy went all around the world charting all the portals that they could use for going in and out of this continuum to go to distant points in space. He said they could travel from the Earth to the middle of the galaxy in 45 minutes. Well, on the History Channel last two Friday nights on Ancient Aliens, they showed a map of the portals all around the planet. And I remember Bill telling me that they had compiled the map of it, and I don't know how the History Channel got this, but they showed the map of the portals. And I want to tell you, there's dozens of them, Rob, all around the planet, dozens of these portals that had all been mapped out by the Navy. And they're showing this map. I got to try to get a copy of it so I could share it with the audience at Shasta.
That'd be cool. There's definitely, I'm sure there may be even more portals they don't even know about.
Of course.
Well, Frank, it's been a wonderful having you on the show here, folks. Hey, I also want to mention the Sandala Orphanage in Tanzania that I support. Their website's down. You can still email the individual there, but to send money, I never touch it. I've sent him some money in the last 2 months, but they really could use help to